the kids?
I'm at my parents' house because last time I did one of these, my kids like bombed it. So,
Okay,
so I've
great.
left the house.
Perfect. Okay, well, hello everybody. How are you? Hola, ¿cómo están todos? This is Alejandro Castillo. Welcome to the new episode of Volley Talks in this Plus Volleyball channel. Today we have a very, very special guest, a person we have never met in person, but we have known from, I don't know, 3-4 years ago when you came to Mexico with Australia. We have a remote connection. So, well, Shannon Winzer, it's great to have you here in Volley Talks. Greetings to Vancouver, British Columbia. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I mean, it's been I don't think we've never actually met personally, but I do remember my time in Mexico well at World Grand Prix. So
yeah, I think it was Aguascalientes, right?
For Aguascalientes, yeah, in 2017.
2017.
Yeah, and we came early, so we were there for quite some time. We played Mexico a few games before we played World Grand Prix, so we loved we loved playing in Mexico. So
yes, and do you remember that I make the connection that Phil Shakespeare, this guy from the embassy,
right? That's right. Yeah, and he came down for our game against Mexico. He came down and he was there for the national anthem. And I think when we were playing in Aguascalientes, the speaker went out, and so we had to sing the national anthem for Australia. Our team, and there's like 5,000 people in the game, and there was no speaker, so we actually had to sing without music. And then it was Mexico's turn, and we had 5,000 people singing the national anthem. It was an incredible experience. But that's right, he was there for that game.
Yes, Phil Shakespeare. I have a connection with him in Facebook. I think he returned to Australia about 1 or 2 months ago from Mexico. He returned to Australia, but that's great.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, okay. He came to the game with his wife. He loved it.
Yeah, well, okay. It's great to have you here, Shannon. I know that you have a very long career as a player in Australia as a pro, and then you stay over there as a head coach. And well, I would love to talk about your beginnings playing volleyball in Canada. I don't know if volleyball, it was your number one sport of what?
Yeah, growing up, I played every sport. I played basketball and soccer and softball. And actually, I was probably more into my softball than I was volleyball at the time. But when I finished high school, I went on and played at University of British Columbia here in Vancouver for Doug Reimer, who was a former Canadian national team coach back in the day. So I spent time there. And then when I finished, I didn't really intend on playing volleyball past university. I'd like to. I don't know. I think I consider myself more of a mediocre volleyball player, but I ended up going to London, and I started playing for Polonia Volleyball Club there. A real long history with that club. Great club to play for, and through that had more opportunities in Europe with some traveling teams and some cup teams. After 3 years in London, I moved back to Australia because I'd met who's now my husband. I met him in London and moved back to Australia. Once again, I'm like, I'm not going to keep playing volleyball. And I went back to softball and played in their top league there. And, fell back into volleyball. I just can't get away from it. So I played, I want to say 4 or 5 years, no, maybe longer, maybe 5 years of what is their elite league. It's their national league. It's not as professional as the other teams. I mean, I would say even professional. We get sponsored by universities and we get funded that way, but we all have regular jobs. We all have to work regular jobs there. So I played for the University Blues till about 2010. And then I started to have kids. And after I had one kid, I went back and played another year. And I was captaining the team. And I think my coaches at the time, I think they knew I'd always get into coaching, but that definitely wasn't my intention. And then after I had my second child, I decided I'd start coaching National League, and had some early success there with the University Blues. We went from bottom of the league to winning 4 national championships in a row. So after having some early success, I started working with the national team. in Australia. And yeah, and at the time, Mark Barnard, who's the head coach of Oregon State, he was the head coach of Australia, and he was really supportive of me getting involved with the national team. I wasn't long out of my playing career, so coaching was still sort of new to me, and I was still really fresh. So I started out his assistant, and while we started winning and building a pretty successful team with the Melbourne University Blues, my coaching career kind of took off from there. But my playing career is certainly not impressive. I definitely.
But you never thought to be a coach. I mean, you didn't go to Australia thinking to become a coach.
No, not at all. I actually I was working for World Vision at the time. I used to, I have an actual postgraduate degree in international community development. So I've always worked with people. Sport and full-time sport was something I did, not full-time. It was probably part-time as a player because, we had to pay the bills with other jobs. And then coaching, I always did a bit of it, like a little bit of club, a little bit of high school. I never really took it that seriously until I started coaching National League, and I had the right people support me and the right people really back me. And then when I took the job with the national team, I ended up at the Institute of Sport. And all of a sudden now I'm in the world of high performance sport. And I used to think I was a high performance coach until I actually ended up at the AIS and realized, wow, I have a lot to learn. And it was a really steep learning curve. But it was that wasn't my career goal. And once I got into it and I realized I could make a living doing it, then I realized this is my profession now. We got to do some work.
Okay. Are you aware that Polonia, that club in the United Kingdom, is the current club of Giva from Brazil?
Yes, I know. I've heard. And, Rachel Rourke, who is actually our big player in Australia, she's now retired. She actually played for Polonia as well. So, and they still keep in touch. They're still really supportive of like my coaching journey. I have such great memories playing for that club. But yeah, I've heard Giva plays there. That's just phenomenal to me.
Yeah, and please tell us a little more about the structure of the national tournament or the national championship in Canada. I'm sure that that could be very different from Mexico or even USA.
You mean in Australia?
No, in Canada, then in Australia.
Oh, the national team.
No, the national championship, or there's no a pro league.
Sorry. Yeah, there's no pro league in Canada. Now I'm still only 1 year back to Canada. So I only moved back here, last year, and I've spent like 16 years away. So I sit with the national team. What we have here is our youth sport. So it's similar to the NCAA. It's run through our Canadian universities, and we have college, which is like a junior college type league, and that's where our players play. There's no as they're developing and coming through, pathways. But there's no professional league here. When our athletes graduate university and they finish playing in NCAA and they finish playing at U Sport, then our intention is for them to go pro and they play in, European, South American, Asian leagues. But there's no league in Canada at all once you graduate university.
But the national teams are training in Vancouver. Is the center, right?
Yes. So we have our full-time training center here in Richmond. It's essentially Vancouver. We run it at the Olympic. It's called the Olympic Oval, but it's actually a private facility run by Richmond, the city of Richmond. Our athletes come here for the summer only. So they're here from, May, if there wasn't COVID, they'd be here from May to September, and then they would go back to their pro leagues. If we still have athletes who are NCAA or U Sport, they would go back to their colleges then. But they only spend essentially 4 months with us in the summer, and then they go back to their full-time programs, and then they come back to us at the end of those contracts. So if an athlete is not playing pro, they're probably, unless they're injured, they're probably not at the level of the national team. We expect all of our national team athletes to be playing pro, unless they're injured. But the younger athletes, they're generally all playing NCAA or U Sport, so they tend to have to go back a bit earlier.
Okay, yeah. Do you remember that 2 years ago we spoke about the possibility to one Mexican team can go to Canada? Well, I don't know. This year is obviously out, but next year we can work it out about that.
We're always looking for games. So while I assistant coach with Tom at the senior A team, I also coached what's called Next Gen. And Next Gens are essentially our senior B team. And it's really just a way for us to be working with more athletes in the gym and getting them more aligned technically with our senior A team and work with them sooner. But the one thing we struggle to get is regular games. Obviously, there's competitions that we don't send our A team to. We'll send a B team or an A2 team to. But, we're always looking for games. And then when I contacted you, I was like, hey, are there any top clubs in Mexico who want games? Because we need to play more. And we spend our time going down and playing against NCAA teams in May as much as we can until they're not allowed to compete anymore. Because our B team is generally made up of younger athletes and athletes who are, in their final years of NCAA or maybe their first or second year of pro. So always looking for games.
Okay, next time or next opportunity, we will make it happen. You can make it. You can bet on that. So awesome. Tell us a little more about your. Well, you moved from London. You moved to Australia. What about you went there for your MBA or for playing?
No, for my husband. I just moved there. He didn't want to move to Canada, and so I got him here now though. But he didn't want to move to Canada, so we moved back to Australia. And yeah, I just started playing, and I finished my postgraduate when I was there. But yeah.
And what can you tell us about the league in Australia? What, it's so competitive or not so competitive?
No, I don't think it's very competitive. I think that when I used to play in it, I think it was more competitive because we timed it so it was during the international season. Back then, our national team in Australia didn't play many competitions, so they would essentially have the league during the international season when the best players in the country, we had a few who'd play pro and a few who'd play NCAA. They would be home and they'd play in the league. So back then, I think the league was much stronger. Now, it's not very strong. It's as good as it gets in Australia. But I know when I was coaching with Australia, and I'm sure Marty's the same, who's now the head coach of Australia, it's about getting your athletes out of there. We need to get them into better leagues. So really working with the athletes to get them at the level where they could go to the NCAA or they could go to good, get to Europe or Asia and play in leagues that were much better than Australia. Unfortunately, the league's not great there. And, it's not a big sport in Australia, and we don't have as many athletes playing, and we're still fighting for the top athletes who are going to netball and basketball. So in Australia, it was
rugby.
Tough. Pardon?
And rugby with the Wallabies.
Rugby sevens, women's rugby sevens, and soccer. Australia is awesome at sport. But we just didn't have the number of athletes that a lot of countries had.
Okay, well, that's a shame. But yeah, you went over there and played for, you told me what, 6 years?
Oh, I played, let me think. I think I played there from 2003. I think I played for 7 years. I think it is seven years, 2003 till 2010. And I went back and played 1 year after I had my first child. And I played with the national team from 2008 till 2010. I became Aussie. I wasn't, I became Aussie.
Well, hopefully, you don't speak like an Aussie. You speak like a Canadian.
No, it's funny when I'm there. When I come home, people always ask me, where I'm from. They don't think I sound very Canadian, but I think after being home for a year, I sound more Canadian now.
Oh, because the Australian accent is very difficult for me to understand.
Yeah, well, the Australians, they have a different language. And so the slang and the words we use, I still use them now. And players look at me going what are you talking about? So there's just a different way of speaking in Australia. It's like its own language.
Yes, I know. And how was the shift from being a player to become a coach?
At the time, I probably thought I did it really well, but I look back and I go, early on, I think a lot of players sort of make that mistake of coaching based on our own experience as players. And so we coached in a way that, that's how we wanted to be coached. And early on, I was doing that. I was the coach that I wanted when I was a player. And then it takes you some time to realize that not everybody has the same experiences or the same values and beliefs, and that you need to develop a skill set that allows you to, be more self-aware and connect with more athletes, not just the ones who are similar to you as a player. So early on, I think I was a really one-sided coach, and it took me probably some years to develop the skills I needed to coach a wider range of athletes.
Great, Shannon. And which coaches can you say made the biggest influence for you in your career?
Oh, wow. You know, I was lucky in Australia. Like, I got to work with the men's program a lot. And when I moved up to the Australian Institute of Sport, they already had a full-time program up there for the Center of Excellence. And I worked with the former men's national team head coach, Russ Borjo, and Dan Eilert, who was the men's national team assistant coach. And then we had Sue Jenkins, who's actually works in coach leadership at the Institute of Sport. They worked with me day in and day out. They had really difficult conversations with me. They sat down with me. We had these great conversations where we could just be honest and really share experiences, and they'd let me make mistakes, and they'd just unpack things with me. And so they've had a huge impact on my coaching career. Now, you know, I've connected with actually a basketball, the former national team coach for basketball in Canada, Alison McNeil. I've connected with her, and the conversations we have are different to the ones I'd have with the coaches that mentored me in Australia. But she's been a huge influence so far on me, just really pushing me to get outside my box and be uncomfortable. And yeah, she's really challenged me. So they've had a big influence. So it's not so much the people that, obviously I've watched a lot of coaches. I've been in a lot of coaches' gyms, and I take a little bit from everyone I probably play against or coach against or work with or have seen, or I just listen to a lot that's online. And they obviously have a bit of an influence on you, but it's those people who I really worked with as mentors who held me accountable and just really had those really difficult conversations. And that's what's really impacted me the most, I think.
Right. And what did you say to the younger players, or female or male, that wants to become a better player? Or how do you work their weaknesses with these young players?
With the young players?
With the young players.
Well,
yeah.
I think they have to do exactly what I try to do as a coach and be uncomfortable, because we have this tendency to only want to train the things that are easy for us. It's like, I made the mistake, I think, as a coach early on, that I did the drills that looked pretty and the drills that made me feel good about my coaching, that made me feel successful. And as a player, I think it's similar. We want to feel good when we leave the gym. And so we want to do the things that are easy for us. And if we leave the gym that we feel that we've been uncomfortable and we've been frustrated, and, you know, we've just really, gotten really frustrated with ourselves, I think those are the good training sessions. I think encouraging an athlete to have that healthy relationship with frustration and failure, you're doing well when that's happening.
Okay. And then how do you become a coach of the national team of Australia? It's difficult. There's a lot of competition, or it was a little easy?
I mean, the honest story is it is difficult. I mean, they're always looking for international coaches with the experience outside of Australia. I had worked with Mark Barnard, and he sort of gave me the heads up that he was going to be stepping down. I actually applied with Volleyball Australia, wanting them to know that I was interested in their full-time Center of Excellence program, just so they knew I was out there and I was keen to, work as a full-time professional coach. They went through a series of interviews, and there was some really strong contenders, and they actually, the year I got the job, they actually offered the job to someone else, and he turned it down at the very last minute. And I approached the board and said, great, well, this is what I can offer, and this is why I'm the right person for it. So I kind of went after it from there, and ended up getting it. And yeah, I had 2 more years left on my contract with Australia, so I would have done, I guess, 5 years, but I left early to go to Team Canada. So it is difficult, but yeah, it is difficult. I guess it's how you present yourself, but obviously you have to have the experience behind it. And after winning 4 national championships in a row, it was something that Australia wanted to at least give me an interview. And then once we went from there, I just sort of pushed my case forward.
And Shannon, how difficult is it to compete in the Asian Volleyball Confederation, considering Australia is too far from everybody, just close to New Zealand?
Yeah, listen, playing in the Asian Confederation is really tough. is really tough. And I remember like no games are easy playing in Asia. There's just not a lot of easy games. And so, but Oceania is not very strong. So New Zealand and the Polynesian Islands, like they play volleyball, but it's not very strong. Our Olympic berths in Australia were through the Asian Confederation, but that was tough. And coaching in Asia is tough. So.
Yeah, well, I think even competing in Australia, it's very long distances to compete from Brisbane to Perth, for example. Or
yeah, so our national league, we traveled around. So we traveled around and played in every state. But anytime that the international season went out, like our tours were long. So here in Canada, we do like a 2-week tour, or we do a 3-week tour. I think we do 3 weeks, and the players think that's really long. In Australia, we're like minimum 3 weeks. Once we leave our island in Australia, we're going to spend some time getting games. So, you know, when we travel for World Grand Prix, we'd always leave early so we could train and play against the teams there. In my final years with Australia, we would usually do a training camp in Poland and then drive to Slovenia and play as many national teams as we could there. And I know Marty and the national team still do that. So we would go and find games. No one was coming to Australia to play us. So we worked hard to go out there and play against whatever teams we could. But it's so far. And you know, the European teams, they travel for like an hour or two, and they just think it's ridiculous we would travel for like 42 hours to go and play. So
yeah, I can imagine. Australia is huge.
It is.
So, and then how is this change from, how is that you leave Australia to Canada? I can imagine you were invited by Volleyball Canada, but what happened between this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always been interested in coming back to Canada. I think Canada has this, we have this real potential to qualify for an Olympics. I think that's something that is a realistic goal for us in 2024, if not, then in 2028. And I love the work I was doing in Australia, and to where we had started to where we had grown the program. I was really proud of that. But the Olympics is definitely my goal as a coach. It's definitely something I'd like to work with the team to achieve. So Canada was always on my radar. When their head coach stood down, I sort of just approached Canada saying I was interested in coming home at some stage. And then they obviously offered me the role I'm in now, and I jumped at it. It's a really great opportunity to be involved with a program with a ton of potential. So yeah, the decision probably should have taken us longer, but we made the decision pretty quick to go home. And I think I made the decision we made the decision in January, and I was leaving Australia in April. Yeah, and you know, Australia was my high performance director in Australia I was so nervous telling him, because he was always so supportive of my coaching career in Australia, and he was very supportive of my move to Canada as well. He understood that, you know, my family's still in Canada. I have 3 kids, so it was good to go home. And he was supportive of, you know, me growing my coaching career. So yeah, I have such positive thoughts about everything that, you know, Australia offered me. But I'm very grateful to be home in Canada working with this program.
And how did you convince to your husband? That was a tough one,
well,
right?
I mean, that wasn't super easy. I think I pulled out that I've been in Australia for 15 years. I think you owe me like a quad. So he knows it's important to me. He knows like I've sort of grabbed onto my coaching career and just trying to run with it. And opportunities, you know, they don't always come around again. So it's not like you can put off Canada, you know, when Team Canada says they want to bring you into the program, and you can't exactly say, okay, maybe in 2-3 years, like the opportunity was there. And my husband's been so supportive of my coaching career. So we packed up, and it hasn't been easy. Trust me, 3 kids and moving a husband, 3 kids and a dog across the world. Although this is my home, I haven't lived here in 15 years. So it's been tough, but we're here for a while.
Oh, that's great, Shannon. And you mentioned that that in the time you were in Australia was looking for international talent. I remember of John Uriarte working in Australia, right? Did you know John Uriarte, this Argentinian guy, coach?
Uriarte. Yeah,
Uriarte, yes.
He was the men's head coach for a very long time and very successful. And Dan Eilert, who was one of my mentors in Australia, worked very closely with Uriarte. He's very well regarded in Australia.
Yes, I know. And and now, well, it's 2 years ago, yeah, that when you returned to Australia or to Canada, right?
No, just last May. Like
Last year.
I left Australia April 2019.
All right.
Yeah, it
Great,
was pretty
great.
quick. I literally I basically worked on the international season for Australia, and I stepped down in April and pretty much landed here. And 4 days later, was in the gym with Team Canada. I'm still very well connected to the team and the players in Australia, and I love seeing what they're doing. And obviously, the head coach for Australia now, Marty Collins, was my assistant coach. So I love just seeing him work and seeing him grow as a head coach. It's awesome.
Right. And were you born and raised in Vancouver, or in which part of Canada?
Yeah,
So
born and raised.
Are you going back home?
Yeah, this is literally home. I'm right now, I'm in my parents' house avoiding my kids, but I grew up in this house. My kids go to the school that I went to when I was a kid, and yeah, I literally am home.
Right. And I know that the women's program is based in Vancouver and the men's program is based in Ontario.
Yeah, they're based in Quebec, in Gatineau. Yeah, they're on the other side of the country. So yeah, we don't see them a lot, but we support where we can.
And do you know what's the reason for that? I mean, there could be a very good reason.
Yeah, well, I think now I obviously haven't been in Canada forever, but originally the men's and women's programs were in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, and I think neither were really that happy there as the athletes. I know the women's program was struggling to retain athletes because their partners didn't want to live there. It wasn't somewhere they wanted to spend their summers. So there was a whole committee that basically approached, I don't know all the details about it, but approached Volleyball Canada and put like a proposal in place to bring the team to Vancouver. And so that happened, I think 3 years ago, that they moved to Vancouver and the men went to Gatineau.
But I know that you are in a great location, right? In a great gym.
Yeah, so we've got a really good facilities. I came from the Institute of Sport in Australia, and we have phenomenal facilities there. So I think I have a pretty high bar. But yeah, we have a ton of court space. We're still making it our home, but we have pretty good facilities, and it's where we're going to run our full-time training center for the top grade 11 and 12s in September. So we're going to be there a lot more than just the 4 months in the summer, but it's a really good facility. We share it with an ice rink though, and so it means it's freezing. Like, who shares a volleyball court with an ice rink? But we do. It's Canada.
Yes, I know. Okay, so and now that you are competing in NORCECA instead of ABC, what do you think about the level in NORCECA or the level of competition in NORCECA?
Yeah, I think the top teams in NORCECA are it's a slightly different style of volleyball than what you'd face in Asia, but the top teams in NORCECA are still top teams in the world, just like Asia is. I think that when you get to that middle or bottom of NORCECA, it's probably a lot weaker than what we'd face in Asia. I do like the sense of, like, amongst coaches in NORCECA, everyone communicates, and everyone shares a little bit. They talk, and that's a little bit different in Asia. And I don't know if it's because I'm a woman, but in NORCECA I'm very accepted, and people talk to you a lot more than in Asia. It was probably a little bit more difficult for me, but yeah, the level's been good. I mean, I've really enjoyed competing in NORCECA. I've really enjoyed it. I spent this summer, I coached at Pan Am Games. I took the team, I represented I coached the team that represented Canada at the Pan Am Games. And that was my first, official event that had the, NORCECA teams as well as the others. And yeah, it's been good. The level is just different. It's a different style of game. Like, I would say, obviously take out the China in Asia, take that out. If you're looking at, Japan and Korea, like it's a fast game. And so when you're getting them out of system is very, very difficult. But when they're out of system, you almost have the upper hand. In NORCECA, it doesn't matter. NORCECA plays pretty good out of system volleyball because their outside hitters, obviously take away, once again, China. You throw a high ball outside, they can muscle the ball over. Like, they can just get up there and bully the ball. In Asia, it's not as common. Like, it's hard to get them out of system, but they do struggle out of system once you get them there. In NORCECA, yeah, it's maybe a bit easier to get them out of system in NORCECA, but they can bully the ball over the net, which is hard to play against.
Okay, great. And right now you are the assistant coach of the A team and the head coach of the B team, right?
Yeah, I'm one of a few assistant coaches with the A team, but my main role is I head coach Next Gen, which is the B team. So that means I'm probably in the gym a lot more. So I'm not necessarily traveling with the A team as much. And then when they send an A2 team or a B team, I tend to be coaching that team. But yeah, so the whole purpose, like one of the, our goals for, trying to qualify for an Olympics is that we need to increase our depth with the national team. I think that we have, our top players in the national team can compete with some of the best teams in the world, but we don't have the depth. So one of the priorities of the women's national team is to bring more players into the gym. I think I mentioned that before, and work with more players with the national team, get them more aligned technically, get them more international playing experience. And so to do that, they brought in a B team, and that this summer, so 2019 was the first year we had the B team. It allowed us to work with 32 athletes instead of 18 athletes. And I think going forward, this summer we had a great international calendar plan for our B team. We actually had a ton of international competition. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do any of it. But now we're looking at, okay, when we're tracking athletes, essentially my job is to identify and develop athletes who are 4 to 8 years out of Olympic performance or Olympic podium success. So that age range could be anywhere from 16 to 26. It's okay, are they 4 years out of potentially helping us qualify for an Olympics? And if they are, then those are the athletes that I'm working with. And those are the athletes who are my priority. And that's why we call it Next Gen. It's the next generation of Olympians, or, hopefully our first generation of Olympians.
Yeah, and that's the thing I most attract to me, the name and what it means, and next generation, and be thinking obviously not in Tokyo 2020, but you're thinking in Paris 24,
yes,
and LA 28.
Yep. 100%. So I'm very clear on my job. Like I focus on 2024 from the second I stepped into the gym last summer. Tom's thinking Tokyo. I'm thinking Paris. Now Tom's obviously back to Paris, but I've been thinking about Paris for at least 12 months. So identifying athletes, the B team is not for the athletes who are on their way out of the program. They're for the athletes who we want to prioritize as potential Olympians. And, like I said, we could have an 18-year-old that I'm working with. We could have a 26-year-old that I'm working with. But how do we align them? How do we increase their technical capabilities? How do we give them that international experience? And so we could be working with NCAA or U Sport players, or maybe we're working with players who are 1 to 2 years pro. So it's a wide range of athletes, a wide range of ages, but that's how we're thinking. We're thinking in our quads, and that's really my job. And as part of that, in the summertime, I'm spending my time with the national team as the Next Gen head coach. But then in September, now I'm working with athletes who are potential 2028 Olympians. So now I'm looking at those athletes and working with them from September to December. And they're essentially in grade 11 and grade 12. They're 16, 17 years old. So then I'm working with them. They're going to live in Richmond, train full time, study online. And we're going to get them aligned. We're going to do as much as we can technically with them, get them some competition. And so, yeah, that's really what my job is.
That's great. It sounds very, 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 very great. And tell me something, this plan, or it's the same for the other sports, or just volleyball, the Next Gen program?
So Next Gen is actually, a lot of sports will, if they're an Olympic sport, they'll use that term. It's part of a funding. It's how it's funded by the podium. The details of it are probably above my pay grade, but other sports use Next Gen, the term Next Gen. How they work within that space is probably unique to different sports. But the term Next Gen is essentially your athletes who are 4 to 8 years at a podium. And every sport has that. Just what that looks like and how they operate in that space is different.
Okay, that's great. And please tell us something about Lima 2019, the last year Pan Am Games. How was the competition? It was awesome. your first competition. How you look the other teams, the potential of Team Canada in the next years?
Yeah, I mean, playing in Lima, I mean, I had been to Peru with Australia, and we'd, you know, done a couple of World Grand Prix. We've been to Colombia, we've been to Mexico, we've played against some of these teams. So they weren't, I was familiar with them. Playing in Lima was an amazing experience. I mean, the reception by the people from Peru and the fans, and it was just an unbelievable experience. I've never coached in a multi-sport event. I've only ever coached in volleyball competitions like World Grand Prix or, you know, an Asian championship. I've never coached in something like a games where there's multi-sport. So learning how to do that as a coach, and how do you manage distractions? How do you manage athletes? How do you deal, you know, managing your team and training when you want, when there's a greater competition going on. You can't just train when you want, or you just can't have access to the things you want to have access to. So there's a whole learning component for me as a coach, which I think I benefited from. But being there, the competition was fantastic. We were there with essentially an A2 team. We had partially B players and some A players who maybe, and a couple of A players who maybe don't play as much for the A team. So we had our work cut out for us. And it was difficult, but I look back and yeah, I think it was a really great experience. I think our team walked away with a lot of learning, and we got to play against every other team sent their A team. So giving those young players an opportunity to play against, you know, Dominican's A team, Colombia's A team, Peru. I mean, we had a great battle with Peru. And then we played, USA sent their B team. So funnily enough, then USA and us played off for 7th place. We both sent our B teams.
And how was the result in Lima for Canada?
Oh, we out of 8 teams, we finished 8th. USA finished 7th. We didn't win a game in Pan Am Games. Yeah, we sent our, like I said, we sent our B team, and we faced all of our A teams. But I think from Volleyball Canada's perspective, they really highlighted this as an event that they knew they could get some experience to their up and coming players, and they wanted to use it as a development event, and that's exactly what we did. We used it as a chance to expose young players to top competition and experience of playing in front of you know, huge fans, and having to deal with the pressures of that. And our where we stayed, where the Athletes Village was about an hour and a half from the actual competition venue. At times it took 2.5 hours to get there. So how do you manage an athlete, how you manage, you know, your preparation mentally and physically. At one game, I think we warmed up for the game in front of us, got delayed by 5. It went to 5 sets, and an athlete had to warm up, cool down, but how you're managing the mental process and then the physical preparation. I think there was so much that athletes learned from taking part in that event.
Well, I think the most important thing is that you and your team is convinced of that. They're thinking not in the result in Lima, but you're thinking in the next 4 or 5 years. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think that's the hard bit of where we sit. Like, I always say I'm lucky as a coach. Like, I sit in a space right now with Canada where I get to work with the up and coming athletes who are hungry. Like, they have something to prove. And I also get to work with the athletes who maybe they don't get much playing time with the A team. So they've got something to prove as well. So I get to work with these athletes who are super hungry. So I think that's the easy part of my job. I think the hard part is always reminding the athletes of the why. Like, we sit here now, and yeah, we're not, you know, getting the points on the board that we want to, but why are we here? What does the process look like? What are we aiming to do? Like, always looking big picture, but then, okay, this is our goal. We want to qualify in 2024. But I always talk to them about how it's like climbing a mountain. You look to the top, you know the top's your destination, but you've got to focus on the first step in front of you. And by focusing on one step at a time, next thing you know, you're at the top. So we got to keep that top of the mountain, that end goal in mind, but let's come back to what's right in front of us. And athletes and the team understanding the why and where they fit in the why and what the process will look like. That's the hard part, because you have to constantly remind them of that and really make it relevant to them and their journey, because they're also trying to have a pro career. What does that look like? And that's the hard part of coaching in the space I'm in now.
That's great. Thanks, Shannon, for sharing. And considering 2028 Olympics will be in Los Angeles in the USA, maybe the elimination process could be a little easier.
Yeah, well, we don't even for 2024. I mean, there's talk that the qualifications will change. So what that's going to look like for 2024, and will it even change now that there's going to be less time between Olympics? and then 2028, what that's going to look like, I have no idea. In my time as an international coach, it's already changed twice. So yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see what that's going to shape up to be. But I'd like to think like 2024 is realistic for us, and 2028 is definitely realistic for us. I think the changes we have to make and the progress we have to make, they're there. And I don't think I would be here, and I don't think I would have moved across the world if I didn't believe in what we're doing. So
Yes, I know. And when was the last time that Team Canada women was in an Olympics? Were in an Olympics?
You're going to ask me a history lesson. Okay, no one complain if I get it wrong, but I think it's 96. I think Atlanta was the last time that Canada was in the Olympics for indoor.
Okay, well, we can Google it.
I'm pretty sure it's 96, but just, don't totally quote me on that.
Okay, well, it's a lot of time, you know.
Yeah,
24 years ago.
Yeah, a very long time. And like I said, we've got some great athletes who are in the program now. And I think the athletes coming through are a very exciting bunch. How do we get them there? And I think Tom's doing a great job of making sure that technically we're gonna be a strong team. And it's just about how do we align the coaching practices in Canada, and how do we align, the teams, the junior national team, the B team to what Tom wants technically. I think that will take time, but we're definitely taking steps in the right direction.
Okay, perfect. And Shannon, how did you and Tom make scouting in a so big country like Canada? I think it's difficult, right?
It is. It is, because it's a huge country, and I think that was one of my big priorities in the what we call like our off season. I mean, Tom, as you know, he coaches at Georgia, so he goes back to Georgia, and that's obviously a big priority for him come September. So that's really where I come in. I'm his eyes and ears in Canada. And so we figured it was, we have our open trials for the national team that we do at the start of every summer, just to make sure we're being as inclusive as possible. We're seeing as many athletes as we can. But my job basically from September to May is seeing as many players as I can. I watch a lot on VolleyMetrics. So I'm watching, if you're Canadian and you're playing in the NCAA, I guarantee you I've probably watched you at some stage. And I don't reach out to all athletes, but I do watch as many as I can in VolleyMetrics. Youth sport here in Canada, I'm watching as much as I can on VolleyMetrics or in person if I can get there. And then when we did our talent identification for grades like 15, 16, 17-year-olds, I traveled from province to province throughout the winter, and flying in Canada in the winter is like no joke. And I'm a nervous flyer, so that's a whole nother story. But we held camps, essentially at least one, if not two, in each province across the country to see as many young athletes as we can, to do some physical testing, do some skill work, and then identified them that way. It's by no means a foolproof process, but it's 100% better than where we were. So I'd like to think that we've seen more athletes than we have seen in the past, and we'll continue to do that. I want to keep building up that process. We've also done a lot of coach education. When I traveled throughout the country, I also did some coach education and was able to connect with club coaches and provincial team coaches, and just developing those relationships is so important, because then we get, coaches who are seeing these athletes every single day. Now they're sending me an email. Hey, have you checked out this athlete? Hey, Shannon, what do you think here? Or, hey, can you send us some of the information you guys have on your attacking concepts or your game style, your blocking styles, or whatever. Those relationships are really important, because we can't be everywhere. And right now it's, the talent identification is really heavily dependent on maybe one person at this stage, which is me. So how do I work with people in each province to ensure that they're giving us that information? So it was a huge process this winter, but one we'll probably do next winter and hopefully be even bigger. Yeah, we saw for the National Excellence Program, we did a whole talent identification. We saw about just over 300 kids. And obviously they had to nominate themselves to put their hands up to be part of the full-time training center. So it wasn't just a wide open trial. They had to essentially be an athlete who was already playing provincial team or recognized by the provincial association. And then, and from that, we selected 16 of the top athletes to come to Canada, and we had like a 98% acceptance. Like it's ridiculous how many kids they said yes. And these are the top kids in Canada. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's great, Shannon. Thank.
Yeah.
And how many often, Shannon, does a player like Sarah Pavan shows up?
Well, Sarah's beach. So she's actually still really connected to our players on the women's national team. They actually did a live session on Instagram where she was interviewed by Megan Sear, our setter for the national team. But those players, I'd like to think there's, I don't know what Sarah was like when she was young. I think that's really hard for us to tell. I think that, talent identification, it's still a best guess. We're doing, work here in Canada on a gold medal profile where we look at, okay, those athletes who are the best of the best, where are they at physically? And what does their physical testing look like when they were 16? And we're now starting to track that so we can develop a gold medal profile. So we know at, 16, 17, what are the physical benchmarks? But we don't have that in place just yet. For now, it's really subjective. And I think anytime a coach tells a player they know they're going to be an Olympian or they know they're going to be the best in the world, I don't think that's 100% truthful. So for now, it's just a best guess. And I know the things that, we're looking for as coaches, we're looking for the strong character. We're looking for the athlete who's willing to compete, who's willing to push themselves, who's willing to fail, who wants to learn, who wants to work hard. But, physically, we are looking for an athlete who has the potential to be physical above the net, who, can play big or be big. And that comes with certain physical attributes as well.
Okay, well, I know that Sarah Pavan played indoor, right?
She did. Yeah, she played indoor. She went, once again, I'm not a historian, but I understand she went and played pro in Italy, I think. And then she played for the national team indoor. And then she made the switch to beach, and she's now #1 in the world. So
world champion with Melissa Juana Paredes.
Yeah. She's pretty phenomenal. Both that team is our big hope for the Olympics.
And I know you are a little involved in beach, but what was the impact of last year's World Championship by Sarah and Melissa?
Well, when that happened, I was actually in Australia. And so it was more disappointment at the Australian end because our team obviously missed out, and they had a great run there at the World Championship. So I wasn't in Canada when that happened. Unfortunately, in Canada, I still don't think volleyball as a household is something that we get a lot of publicity or we're in the news very much. So I don't know how outside the volleyball community, how many people actually know how successful Canada is on the beach, which is a shame. And I'd like to think that we'll eventually get there. But the actual impact that had, I wasn't in Canada at the time.
Yeah, I know very well that for Canadians, ice hockey is the #1 sport.
It is ice hockey. Is huge. And, basketball is really big for women as well. But unfortunately, we just don't get the publicity I think that we deserve in Canada. But within the volleyball community, I think that that's growing. And I think it's a matter of time that it gets there. And I think if we have some success from indoor, and if, beach produces what we hope they can produce, I think that will get us on the stage a little bit more here in Canada. Yeah,
that's right. Shannon, please tell me, in the past, which players did you admire when you were a player, or right now, which female players, do you think are the best in the world?
In the world,
in your opinion, which player I like the way this player plays?
Well, now I love watching like Boskovic play for Serbia. She's so aggressive. Like, I love that. I love the way she plays. I love the style that she plays. I also love the setter Nutsara from Thailand. I mean, she's tiny, but having coached against her for years, like, her mind is phenomenal. How she reads the game, how she plays the game, how she utilizes her players. She's fantastic. Both Kim from Korea and Zhu Ting from China are all around players. Like, I think that, those are some of the top players that I've looked at. In my playing career, I don't think I did a good job of being very aware of world volleyball. So I can't remember. I'm actually probably a lot older than people think.
Oh, wow. Well, and as you may know, Pan Am Cup is scheduled for this year in Mexico, in Veracruz. Yeah. So do you have some news from the National Federation about that? Because here in Mexico, Shannon, are you there? Shannon, well, we are talking with Shannon Winzer, the assistant coach of the A team of Team Canada and head coach of the next gen or B team in Team Canada. So we are waiting if he can reconnect. Let me send her a message. Bueno, se nos fue Shannon Winzer. Vamos a regresar, espero que regrese para las últimas preguntas. Una plática muy interesante, como les decía, con la entrenadora titular del equipo B y con la entrenadora asistente del equipo A. Déjenme mandarle un mensaje. Está intentando. Lo que pasa es que tuvo problemas con su laptop al principio. Se conectó desde el inicio de la sesión con su celular. Aquí viene ya. Y para terminar ya, nos falta poco, un par de preguntas más para terminar de platicar con Shannon Winzer, que se encuentra ahora en Vancouver, en Canadá. Déjenme ver, está aquí intentando conectarse. Creo que ya casi la tenemos. Bueno, estábamos casi por terminar. Realmente lo que le iba a preguntar es, como saben, la Copa Panamericana Femenil está programada para este año en Veracruz. Saber ella qué información tiene de su federación, saber si tienen luz verde para asistir a México o no. La Norseca está manejando fechas ahí cerca de octubre. Van a saber cuál es la postura al día de hoy de la Federación de Canadá. Sería interesante escucharlo. Está aquí Shannon queriendo juntarse otra vez a esta transmisión. Espero que lo podamos lograr. Si no, bueno, como les decía, estábamos ya a punto de terminar la entrevista con ella. Me dijo que no más de una hora, tiene algo que hacer. Pero bueno, les agradezco mucho que estén aquí conectados. Recordarles que mañana en la mañana, bueno, no en la mañana, es a la 1 de la tarde, tenemos a Joan Cruzilla. Joan Cruzilla es el animador, el MC y host de todos los juegos de la selección de Francia, de voleibol, en Liga Mundial, en Preolímpico, etcétera. Es todo un personaje en Francia. Y en la tarde, más tarde, tenemos a Patty Rolfe, que Patty Rolfe es una árbitro olímpica de Estados Unidos, es de las mejores árbitros del mundo, todavía está nominada para estar en Tokio y la vamos a tener por aquí. Va a ser una plática muy, muy interesante. Veamos, está tratando de conectarse Shannon Winzer. Y bueno, recordarles también que eso es mañana. El martes tenemos a Jim Wolf. Jim Wolf es un fotógrafo de muchos deportes, especializado más que nada en voleibol y voleibol de playa. Él está ahí casi en todos los eventos que hay en California de voleibol de playa. Le gusta también mucho los deportes de motor, el ciclismo. Va a estar aquí el martes, una plática bien interesante. Y el jueves va a estar aquí mi estimado Danny Schwartz. Danny Schwartz es el delegado del voleibol de playa del Centro Deportivo Israelita, aquí en el Distrito Federal, en la Ciudad de México. El año pasado estuve colaborando con él en un evento muy grande y muy bien organizado que son los Juegos Macabeos Panamericanos o comúnmente conocido como la Macabea Panamericana. Un evento muy bien organizado, un evento en grande con cerca de 5,000, 6,000 atletas que vienen a competir. Entonces él va a estar por acá, una plática muy interesante. Creo que ya estamos aquí con Shannon. Shannon, are you there? Do you hear me? Creo que no. Bueno, y eso es el jueves y el sábado sábado y domingo, la semana que entra, tenemos ahí dos sorpresas, dos personas que están a punto de confirmarnos esta semana, si van a estar, pero a ver, No logramos conectar con Shannon. No sé qué problema tenía. Les digo que no se conectaba bien con su laptop al inicio. Después lo hizo con el celular. Algo falló. Déjenme ver. Sí, me manda mensaje. Pero bueno, vamos a esperar un par de minutos más, esperando que se conecte de nuevo Shannon. Yo la conocí, como decíamos, con ella hace 3 años, cuando vinieron al Grand Prix en Aguascalientes. La contacté, conseguí que el embajador se presentara ahí en el evento, en el Grand Prix de Aguascalientes. Para el equipo fue una sorpresa el que llegara ahí el embajador de su país hasta Aguascalientes. Y de ahí hicimos, bueno, conexión. Después, como ella dijo, se movió el año pasado para Canadá, de donde ella es, en Vancouver, y ahora está como asistente del equipo nacional femenil y es entrenadora del equipo B. Bueno, no se puede conectar a Shannon, perdón, una disculpa, una verdadera lástima, raro porque habíamos hecho una prueba el día de ayer, pero bueno, como les decía, la semana que entra, hoy domingo, hay 2 sorpresas muy interesantes, se vienen grandes cosas. Recordarles que el miércoles, en mi proyecto, en otro proyecto que me invitaron, en las charlas con ADEI, charlas interactivas con ADEI, voy a estar entrevistando al mejor jugador de la historia, a Karsh Kirei. Bueno, en inglés dicen Karsh Kirei, nosotros lo conocemos como Karsh Kirali, pero va a estar ahí. Sintonícenlo en el canal de Facebook con ADEI México a las 2 de la tarde, tiempo de la Ciudad de México, del miércoles, que es 3 de junio, si no me equivoco. Bueno, pues les agradezco mucho que hayan estado aquí. No se voy a reconectar. Shannon me decía que estaba ya, a ver, está intentando de nuevo. Espero que ahora sí podamos. No alcanzo a ver la imagen. Shannon, are you there? Can you hear me? I don't see you. Pues parece que no. Creo que no la tenemos. Pero bueno, no se pierdan aquí está. Hey, Shannon. How are you, Shannon? Can you hear me? I think it's a little slow, your Wi-Fi. Can you hear me or not? Shannon, I can't hear you. Your Wi-Fi is very, very slow. Vamos a esperar unos segundos más a ver si se puede conectar y la podemos terminar de platicar con Shannon. Está mandando otra invitación bueno, bien otra solicitud por su teléfono. Shannon, please come back. Hey, Shannon.
Oh, there. It works.
Yes, great.
Hey, nice seeing you.
Perfect. What happened?
Sorry. I have no idea. I have no idea, but all of a sudden everything went dead and I couldn't get anything back. So I'm here. Sorry, what did I miss?
That's great. No problem. I was doing a little recapitulation of the talk. So we were in this question. Do you know something about Team Canada coming to Mexico for Pan Am Cup in October?
Right. Yeah, at this stage, we're still waiting to hear. We know it hasn't yet been canceled. I was really looking forward to, bringing the team to Pan Am Cup in Mexico, but at this stage, we're still just waiting. We haven't heard that it's canceled, but we haven't heard that it's definitely going to go ahead either. At the end of August, it's still a ways away. I know that we've requested that we have at least 2 months preparation before going into an event like that. So. At this stage, it's just a wait and see.
Okay, well, let's see what happens. It's scheduled, I think, in October. So, but well, the most important thing is to be safe with this coronavirus. So well,
yeah, that's our priority right now. And I know with a lot of the professional leagues, the athletes have been some of the athletes have been asked to go back early. So what the future holds, unfortunately, it's out of our hands. It's out of Team Canada's hands. We're kind of waiting for a decision to be made.
Yes, I know. Okay, and well, I think one of the last questions, Shannon, have you ever tried beach volleyball as a player or as a coach?
When I was young, when I was like a teenager, growing up, I played beach volleyball. I thought, to be honest, it's what helped me become more of an all-around player. Definitely, I went from setting to becoming an outside hitter. So beach volleyball is where I spent the time this summer learning to pass, and I've never been a very good jumper. And so how to play shots, how to use the block, that is something that I think beach volleyball helped me with as a player. As a coach, I would by no means ever call myself a beach volleyball coach. In fact, I think my Australian friends would just be laughing right now that I've been asked that. In the Center of Excellence in my final year in Australia, they brought in what's called dual discipline, where they wanted our athletes to train for indoor as well as beach. So I unfortunately had to dabble in beach volleyball coaching, and I had to spend probably 2 days a week on the sand working with our athletes, our Center of Excellence athletes on the sand. I respect the sport. I think it's an amazing sport, but it's not my passion. My passion is definitely with indoor.
Yeah,
I'm far from being a beach volleyball coach. So.
Welcome to the club. I really enjoy more indoor than beach.
I love watching it. Like, I think it's such an exciting game, and I love the atmosphere. I think, having spent a lot of time in Australia, they do such a great job of creating they have a Volley Fest in March in Sydney on Manly Beach, and the atmosphere and the environment is awesome. And I love being part of that as a spectator. And I love, chatting to our beach volleyball coaches, the intricacies of the game. I'm amazed because it's just not as simple as people think. But my passion's indoor. I really love indoor, not beach.
Right, I'm with you, by the way.
Good.
And Shannon, which part of coaching do you enjoy more?
Oh, I love coaching like the whole athlete. I think I get to work with a wide range of athletes and ages, and they're at various stages in their playing careers and their various stages in their life. And knowing that you're a part of an athlete as they grow up, as they mature, as they develop, and being able to, work with them through that process is super rewarding. Like, not just technically in volleyball, obviously, we get to see their improvements on court, but knowing that you've had an impact on a person is that's rewarding, and that's what I probably enjoy the most. I love working with people. I like people, so I think that we're unique, and we can be difficult and we can be frustrating, but inherently people are really good and they want to do their best and they want to be good. And so how can you be a part of helping them be better? I mean, that's what I love. That's cool.
Okay, great. Do you have a question for me or about Mexico or anything you want to know?
Yeah, I mean, tell me more about your head coach. Like, I love that you guys have a female head coach. And I'd love, how's she doing? Like, I can't find much about what's going on in Mexico. I'd love to know more about your guys' head coach in Mexico.
About the coach of the female
yeah,
team.
Gabriela.
Gabby Alarcón.
Yes, I'd love to know more about her. I mean, I love that you guys, I saw her briefly. I think she was kind of head coaching and assistant coaching at Norseca Champs, but I heard she's now your head coach of your national team. And obviously I knew Ricardo. Ricardo was the head coach for the national team for the few years that I was head coaching Australia. But tell me more about her. How's she doing? What's her background?
Well, she's a very successful coach. She works in Chihuahua. Uh, it's border with the United States, with New Mexico and a little Texas. And she did the national team last year. She went to Olympic qualification tournament in Russia. Very very tough in I think Kaliningrad it was.
Yep, we were there. Yep.
Yeah, and well, you know, the national team is not working in a regular basis, but she's doing very well in her club. It's a university called Universidad Regional del Norte, or the Regional Northern University in Chihuahua.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's great that that the female coach coaches actually the female team in Mexico. I think it's great. It's great. It's great news.
Yeah, I think there's not many, and so every time we see another woman step up and coach a national team, I'm always a little bit intrigued on their coaching journey. So one day, hopefully, I get to sit down with her and have a bit of a chat and share some war stories. But I was very pleased to see that Mexico has another female coach up there on their bench. It's great.
And we also have a very very good international referee, Mari Carmen Duran.
Yes. She's repped I think she's done a few of my games, like across Australia and Canada, I believe. I've seen her quite a few times.
Yes, she's doing really really great. And well, here in Mexico we have 10 international referees for indoor, and well, she's the only woman. It's a shame, but it's the reality. But she's doing very very well.
And my other question for you is, tell me a little bit about your national league. Like is it all universities? Are athletes paid, or what is your national league look like?
Well, we have a university championship or a college championship, very strong. Well, we have two. We have the one for all the universities, for all the colleges, and we have another for just the private colleges.
Okay. Is one stronger than the other?
They are switching year by year. Or for example, this last year, the national champion for female volleyball for this championship of all universities was won by a private school.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a little more organized, the private school championship, but obviously the other is also strong. We have well, in the last 15 years, 16 years, we have had 3 attempts of a semi-pro league. I can't call it a pro league. It's not a pro league.
Yeah, it's probably similar to what we have in Australia.
Yeah, maybe. But last year, for example, for half of the teams in this semi-pro league were universities. So you can't call it professional.
Yeah.
You can. But in this regular basis, there are maybe 2, sometimes 3 universities that plays the all university championships, that plays the private school championship, and who plays in this semi-pro league. So I wonder when did the students study? So
well, when we played, when I was coaching Australia and we came out early for the World Grand Prix in Aguascalientes, we played at the university there, and there was lots of students there too, so they weren't studying then either. I still remember we played it. I forget where else. We played somewhere else at the university, and they filled the gym, and it was a practice match between us and Mexico, and they filled the gym, and then they were all like hanging through the windows and looking through the windows, and I'm like, not a lot of studying going on here, but I love their commitment to volleyball. I have such positive memories of coaching in Mexico.
Yeah, well, it's a long story, but at the end, no, we don't have a pro league.
Yeah.
We want to. We have a semi-pro league in a 1 to 10 basis.
Yep.
It's 2.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's some of the challenges that we still face as well is, we do have a college system or a university system, and obviously we have access to the NCAA as well, but we don't have a national league and we don't have a pro league. And that is a challenge that you have to get around as a national team, and making sure, athletes can play in top competitions is we don't have it as easy as some of the other countries who have those leagues, and keeping athletes close to home to monitor and to keep them engaged that way. So it is a challenge for us. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, and I think when you call it a pro league, it means that the players make a living playing.
Yeah.
And in the whole continent, maybe Brazil, maybe Argentina, and probably Puerto Rico.
And I think that's probably also one of the challenges that we had in Australia is like when they were playing, playing in the national league, if they weren't off playing in Europe or Asia, they had to have jobs. And so we had athletes who had full-time jobs, and then they were also full-time athletes. And how they manage that is really difficult, and that's hard to do it and try and compete against these other countries who have professional players who that's their only job is to play and train for volleyball. And coming to Canada, we definitely have a lot more professional athletes than we did in Australia, and it's a noticeable difference in the level of volleyball as well. So it's all relative. It all impacts.
Yeah, well, for example, one thing I see every semester in USA is that they send the last semester they sent almost 700 transfers to different countries.
Yeah.
So here
in
Mexico we have 7, 8, 10.
Yeah. So I mean, in Australia, when I was coaching Australia, we probably had the most amount who were playing pro, and we were probably the same, about 7 or 8 of our national team. So that means some of our national team are part-time players, and we're competing against countries who have full-time professional athletes. In Canada, obviously our whole team is professional. And the list obviously is longer than our national team because we have athletes who play pro who aren't on the national team or aren't selected for the national team. But yeah, it's a big difference. I mean, our population, we're a big country, Canada, but we only have like 35 million people who live here. So yeah, and competing against those countries was tough in Australia. I mean, a part-time athlete against a professional athlete, and how to manage those expectations, having the expectations of a high performance environment of being a professional athlete when you have a part-time athlete. Like that's a very difficult relationship to manage as well.
Yeah. Well, I will send you via SMS or Messenger the contact of Gabrielle Arcon in Facebook. So you
do that. I would love to connect with her. I think I'd love to connect with her, and maybe we can maybe they can come up and play us. But I would love to connect with her for sure.
Yeah. As I told you, right now I have a lot of more contacts, more than a year ago. So first time we can make that plan work. We will make it work.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely open to anything. I mean, we're open to getting as many games as possible for our athletes. And now that we have the National Excellence Program as well, that runs from September to December, although they're younger, they're 17 years old, they're our best players in the country. So that's another opportunity for us to find some games if that fits in better with your club season as well. So there's always potential there, even if it's not with our senior B team. We have, our whole National Excellence Program team of 17-year-olds who I think, would really benefit from those games as well. So let's make it work.
Yeah, let's make it work. Right now, by the way, my work here in Mexico in volleyball is to grow crowd. We have to put more people in the bleachers. It's because it's obvious. No sponsor will put $1 to a stadium empty.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the level of the play, because if a sponsor says, hey, okay, the level of playing is very well, but where are the fans? So right now I'm very, very involved in doing that to make grow the game and to grow the crowds.
In one hand, that's surprising to me because my only image of playing in Mexico was playing Aguascalientes, where the stadium was full every night. Like it was just packed. And so that's my image of playing in Mexico. But I know playing, in Asia, where there's lots of people watching and they're involved in your games. And then going to Norseca, I can see there's a real difference between the level of fans and people who are interested.
You know what happened, for example, in places like Aguascalientes, the stadium, the arena is crowded, but maybe just 20% of people are volleyball fans. They go because it's Mexico and let's yell for Mexico. We will love Mexico, go Mexico. Yeah. But a lot of those people really don't know anything of volleyball. Right. So we have to teach them. We have to educate them so they can go to enjoy the game because they know the rules, they know the players, they know how can you make a point. But yeah. And especially in tournaments or in matches with national teams in any sport in Mexico, you will get a lot of Mexicans yelling for Mexico, not exactly very well educated people in the sport.
In the sport, yeah. So do you play, what age do you start playing volleyball in Mexico?
Me or?
No, like in people, like say, like if my kids were growing up in Mexico, when would they first be introduced to it?
That's the $64 million question.
Really? That I think was the big difference in Australia is athletes don't really start playing volleyball or aren't really introduced to it till they're about 13 or 14 years old. Well, by then, soccer's had them since 5, basketball's had them since they've been 8 years old. So they play all these other sports and they've been taught volleyball when they're about 13. Whereas in Canada, you know, they have, you know, programs and programs available for kids as young as like 8 or 9 years old. And in school, you start playing from the age of, you know, 10. So that's a huge difference between Australia and Canada. And here we go, 2 countries of, you know, they're 22 million and 36 million, but the number of people who play volleyball in Canada compared to Australia is huge difference.
You know, it's it depends in the region but there are a lot of people that build or may grow their own school. So, hey, I'm a coach, so come, any kids. It's amazing for me that I have seen coaches that are teaching an 8-year-old to jump serve. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because you have to start. I'm not a coach, by the way, but I think the common sense tells me that you have to start with the basics, not to make an 8-year-old to make a jump serve.
I think within reason. For me, I don't believe in breaking down a skill so they do parts of a skill to get better. I think they need to just start off doing the whole skill. But at the same time, when they're 8 years old, it's about making the sport fun and they need to enjoy the sport. And if everyone's serving the ball or can't serve the ball over the net, well, then they're not really having fun. So here we do things like triple ball where they serve, but then maybe they'll throw in 2 free balls. So they're still getting that rally. So I think at those young ages, it's really about making sure these athletes are having fun and enjoying our sport. But from a skill perspective, yeah, I don't think we should teach a part of a skill. Like when we're teaching kids to spike, we're not going to teach them arm swing and then approach. We're just going to throw the ball up, help them approach and swing and go from there. But, you know, doing the whole skill. But 8, like have some fun. Find a way to have some fun. You know, modify the games. Like I think of, you know, my daughter now, and if someone could make her interested in, well, any sport, I'd be happy, but they need to be fun, you know, they need to have some fun.
Yeah, and I think a way to make it fun, the game in those ages, is to play doubles or to play 3x3.
Yeah.
Playing 6 versus 6, it's a matter of percentage, you know, to touch the ball.
Yeah. Well, we even know, like, even at high performance level, it's about how many touches can you get at training. And if we only played 6-on-6, we're not going to maximize our touches, and we're not really going to be able to practice, you know, get as many touches for each skill. So we play 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4. We're always playing that to maximize touches.
Yes, I know, but here in Mexico, it's a long story. We can spend 3 days talking about that.
Yeah, sorry, we've gone off track. Sorry.
No, it's perfect for me. But I mean, it's reality. There's a lot of people in Mexico that they play so in the high school, didn't finish college, and they say, hey, I will turn coach, but from now to tomorrow. So, hey,
Yeah.
I'm a coach. Hey,
Yeah.
what kind of qualification or certification do you have?
Well,
No, not any, but I love the game.
yeah.
That's not, I think that's not enough.
Well, this is the thing is I think that's how we get coaches. I think that's how I started coaching. Like I was a player and I loved the game and I didn't want to stop playing, and it was part of my identity. So I just started coaching. I called myself a coach, and because I was coaching. And I think that's okay, as long as you're willing to recognize where you're at and you're open to learning and you're open to listening and figuring it out. But if you start coaching and think you have all the answers, well, that's where we have a problem. And even now, I mean, I'd be lying straight through my teeth if I, told you I had all the answers or thought I had all the answers. Like even now, I'm open to learning. I'm seeking out information. I think as coaches who just start coaching, I think it's great. We need more people to just go, hey, I want to coach. I want to be involved. I think that's awesome for our sport. But then also we have to offer them the opportunities to grow and learn. And we can't just expect that to happen just by them coaching.
Well, I will give you an example. There's a learning plan from the National Federation that is in, I think it's 2 or 3 levels, I don't know. But if you want to coach in Junior Olympics in Mexico, you have to present those 2 levels of National Federation program. So, but the problem is that a lot of people goes only for the paper, because you have to get the paper to can coach in the regional Junior Olympics. Okay. Yeah. This year, with a friend, Pepe Núñez in Tec de Monterrey, we scheduled to have in July Doug Bill and John Kessel. You know those guys?
Yes, I know who they are.
I think that they know a little about volleyball.
Just a little bit.
Yes.
They might have done a little bit of coaching.
And well, the national program, national training program, it cost, I don't know, maybe $100 a session, American dollars. And with Doug Bill, Olympic gold medalist, and John Kessel, level 4 FIVB instructor, it will cost almost $125 for 3 days. And a lot of people say, hey, that's okay, but that course will allow me to coach nationally. Oh no, but you will learn a lot. Oh no, thanks. I need a paper to go to that with this paper I can coach.
Yeah.
I'm not very interested in learning.
I don't think that those are unique challenges. I think that those are challenges that I think we saw a little bit of in places like Australia as well. I think I think it can get there, but not everybody is wired to think, okay, it's about me ticking a box to coach, not about me being the best coach I possibly can. And I'd like to think that coaches will eventually get there. But it's not uncommon. I mean, I think we face some of those similar challenges, like I said, in Australia, where I was a little bit more involved. I'm not too sure about the Canadian side of coach development and coach education, because I've only been here a year and it's not really the area I'm in. But those are challenges that I've definitely heard about in Australia as well.
Okay, but well, I think at the end,
you have your work cut out for you.
What?
You have your work cut out for you growing the game.
Yes, of course. I had a lot to do. And I was a referee for a long time, almost international, but I declined. Long story too. But right now, well, I studied business administration. I was working for the last 20 years in multinational and national companies in sales and marketing, like Nestle, like Colgate-Palmolive. So I think I have a different approach.
Yeah, you probably offer that business side that sport needs. I think that sometimes, you think about our clubs and like the sports that, grassroots sports, they're run by volunteers, and they come from sometimes a perspective of, people who are volunteering their time and not necessarily the business approach. So you can definitely offer that business perspective. I think we can all grow the game in our countries, in Canada as well as Mexico. I think we can all definitely be growing the game. And, I think that we're making steps in the right direction in Canada. And I hope you guys, are making headway there too.
Yeah, because I'm convinced that the only people that will grow volleyball is the volleyball people.
100%, for sure. I mean,
For
and
sure.
I mean, for sure. And we've got to accept too that we are really passionate about our sport. Like we love our sport. We want to be better at our sport. We want everyone to love our sport. But we have to accept that it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So we kind of have to pick and choose how we're going to grow the game and what audiences we're going to target. How do we appeal to the masses? So yeah, I think that business acumen that you can potentially provide will be awesome for Mexico.
I hope so. I hope so. With Mexico and Norseca and everyone who wants to do that, I will be able to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's why we're both here though too. Like we both, we love our sport and we just kind of want to, we want to grow it, even if it's just a Facebook Live conversation with each other,
yeah, you know that with you, this project of Volley Talks, this is the 46th episode.
46.
46th.
Wow.
In a span of almost 2 months.
That's insane.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess we haven't been able to leave our houses all that much, though, have we?
But I love it. I really love it.
That's awesome. That's really good.
And I think it's important for we as Mexicans, yes, to hear the stories of the Mexican legends, of course, like Ivan Contreras, like Laura Almaral, like Chava Gonzalez, but also to hear different perspectives. No, now you from Canada, next Wednesday from Karski Ray, from Duke Bill, from John Kessel. This morning I interviewed Rafa Pascual.
Yeah, I've seen a few of your interviews. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish, so I do struggle. I can catch words because I'm fluent in French, so I can catch words. But I have watched a few of your interviews.
Yeah, but he's the best Spanish player in the history.
Yeah, no, I knew who he was. I couldn't understand anything that was being said. Sorry.
He was a great star. Tomorrow I will interview Patty Rolfe. You know her, the international referee.
Yeah, she's actually a few of our games as well. Like yeah.
She lives in Wisconsin. She's a grandmother. You know that?
She's what?
A grandmother.
No way. Yes. I would have never guessed. Guessed.
But she was the second referee in the gold medal match in Rio, and the third referee is Susana Rodriguez from Spain. She was here 2 weeks ago, Susana from Albacete in Spain. So I think it's this kind of my hashtag in Spanish is recycling the knowledge, because recycling the knowledge.
Oh, recycling the knowledge. Is that what the hashtag is?
Yeah, it's my hashtag, but in Spanish it's reciclando el conocimiento. In English is recycling the knowledge.
Okay.
Because it's that, because we the volleyball community, I hope you be okay with this. We are smaller than we think,
Yeah.
We are not. For example, in soccer, to interview Mourinho or Leo Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo could be a very, very difficult. But we in volleyball, we are, I think, a very small community compared to soccer.
Yeah.
I think that we are, what's the word in English? We are friends. We are.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree.
Me in Mexico, Rafa in Spain.
Yeah, I find like the volleyball community is so willing to share information. And I don't think I realized that as a coach when I first started. Like I sort of just sat in my box and coached early on and didn't realize all I had to do was reach out to different coaches. And so many coaches are willing to share information, share resources. They're willing to have you in their gyms. Like there's such a community in volleyball. And you're right. And I think that this time, as much as the time during the pandemic has been, trying, it's given us time as coaches to actually dial into sessions like this. I mean, I've been a part of a couple of them as guests, but I've also, I've listened to so many of them, and we don't really always have that time, especially between May and September, to do those things. So it's been a really unique time for us as volleyball coaches, and everyone's so willing to be a part of it. So yeah, I think you're right. Exactly. It's a small, friendly community, smaller than we think.
Yeah. Last week, I had here the MC and announcer for all the events of USA Volleyball and AVP, Rob Espero. Did you know him?
I don't know him, no.
He's the funniest guy in the world.
Really?
The funniest. Tomorrow I will have Joan Cruzilla. He's the MC and announcer for all the events for French volleyball teams.
Nice. You're getting. I love that you're. I love that you're not just sticking with coaches. You've got referees. You've got announcers. You've got just a wide range of people involved in the community. I think that's really important as well, because you're showing people that there's so many different ways to be involved in our sport. You know, you don't have to be a coach or an athlete. You can be an administrator. You can be, you know, an MC, entertainer. You can be a referee. Like that's fantastic. It's a wide range.
1 month ago, 5 weeks ago, I have the photographers of volleyball.
Really?
Yeah.
We have a really good one in Australia. He did a bit. Owen Hammond. He was really good. He did stuff for World Grand Prix with Volleyball Australia. I don't know who he's with now, but he was a fantastic photographer.
Well, I will have, I think in maybe 2 weeks, Jim Abbott. Do you know him?
I know the name. I don't know him, but
yes, I will have here. And this Tuesday, I have Jim Wolf. He's a great, spectacular photographer for USA Volleyball NCAA in California.
Nice.
I will have him. 1 month ago, I have Scouts, the Scoutmen for volleyball.
Scouts are interesting.
Yeah, so it's volleyball community. You know, it's not only players, it's not only coaches, it's all of us, and I think it's great. I have really enjoyed this journey.
That's great. That's a lot. It's a great initiative on your part. I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Oh, thanks. I'm very glad that you accepted to be here, Shannon. I really like you. You're a really good person. I really like you. I hope to meet you pretty soon, as soon as this pandemic ends.
I'm sure it's more likely now that I coach Canada and not Australia. It's more likely I'll be back in Mexico.
Yeah, or I can be in Vancouver someday. We don't know.
Sure. Yeah, we've got to work something out, especially with net.
Yes, we will. Trust me, we will. Shannon, I want to thank you. This has been a very entertaining talk with you. You are a very kind person. Thank you very much. I really like to talk with you. And gracias, amiga. Gracias, amiga Shannon. Saludos hasta Canadá. I hope you can sorry my English. I'm getting better in my English.
You're doing great.
Thanks a lot. So I hope I can help you improving your Spanish level.
I got a C-, so you're gonna have to help me a lot.
C-.
I got a C-.
Okay. Muchas gracias a todos los que nos vieron. Thanks a lot for everybody who watches and hears. Thanks a lot, Shannon, again. It was great to have you here in Volley Talks project. It was very important to me to have you here. And well, I'm very glad you accepted.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Hope to see you very soon. By now, stay safe, stay at home. And I send you a virtual hug, a virtual greetings to Vancouver. So thank you very much for being here, Shannon.
Thank you.
Bye.